Hello and welcome back to your mat. Today's class is going to be a little motivation boost for you. So we're going to do that. We're going to accomplish that through some yin and some yang poses, and you'll see what I mean here in a moment. So depending on when you're watching this video, but I know when I'm releasing it, it's going to be about the third week of January. And so by this time, some of our motivations for some of our intentions and our goals or whatever things we may have set at the beginning of the year, that motivation might have started to wane by now. If it hasn't already, you might still be highly motivated, and that's great. And even if you don't need a motivation boost, this class is still going to be good for you. But for a lot of us, it's starting to wane. You're starting to get really into that, okay, you know what? It's been 3 or 4 weeks. Motivation's gone. So I cannot guarantee that this class is going to suddenly make you go, okay, now I'm ready to do this again. No, I'm not promising that at all. But what I am going to offer to you is a little reflection time on your why. Why did you choose X, Y, or Z? Why was this a goal for you? What was your why? And so sometimes we need to come back to our why to rekindle that motivation, to rekindle that fire, to continue going on. And sometimes we may find that we didn't really have a good reason. We don't really know why we were doing something. And so we might need to let something go and put something else in its place. So whatever you've chosen that maybe your motivation might be waning for, what is your why for choosing that? Whatever that might be, whether it's some sort of change, whether it's something you want to add into your life, take away, whatever it might be, what is your why? And we'll think about that throughout today's practice. So we'll start with a quote. This one is by Roy T. Bennett. Believe in your infinite potential. Your only limitations are those you set upon yourself. So keep that in mind. So we're going to do some yin and some yang type poses. So yin is more of the calming, the introspective poses, and the yang is the more heating, the more energizing. So this is going to be a little combo of both to kind of help boost that motivation and get you back on track. We're going to start with a nice yin, calming, introspective pose, child's pose, a favorite of a lot of people. If you'd like, you can sit up on a prop here if that helps you. Otherwise, go ahead and sink your heels or sink your seat back onto your heels, the best that they come, and stretch those arms out in front of you. I have a wide-legged child's pose here. You can always bring your knees in and fold forward that way. For me, I just love this version the best, so that's what I'm going to go with. So come forward, and again, your child's pose might be more upright, or your seat may come down to your heels. That's not what's important. I want you to focus bringing that forehead to the mat if you can. If not, stay up on your forearms. This is also perfectly acceptable. And for just a moment, we're going to have that introspection. What is your why? I want you to take a couple of breaths here and stay in this pose for just a minute. Don't worry, we're going to fire up a little bit here. Or maybe you just want to stay in this pose, and that's okay too. And now we're going to bring ourselves slowly back up. And now we're going to get a little heat into those feet. Heat into the feet. So you're going to tuck those toes behind you. And if you've done any of my classes before, you probably guess what we're going to do. Call this the toe cruncher. This one's a tough one. For me, it's a tough one for a lot of us, but we're going to sit. So you can stay more forward if you like. If that's enough on your toes, then stay there. But if you've got it and you want to challenge it a little bit and feel it a little bit, go ahead and sit back on those heels. And I'm feeling it right away. And I do this pose from time to time, not very often, but I still can't stand it very long. So come out of it whenever you need to and come back in. And just breathe through it. Feel that yang energy, that firing up of the toes, the bottoms of the feet. This is an area that we don't stretch all that often, and yet we're on our feet a lot. So it's actually a great one to stretch out the bottoms of the feet all the way through to the toes. Yeah, and it is a toe cruncher. So we're going to stay here for just another breath or two, coming out as we need to. And then go ahead and release your toes down to the mat. You can give them a little tap there if you like. And we're going to continue with that yang energy, and we're going to come into downward dog. So this one we're going to stay in for several breaths, and we're going to stretch through all of the body here. So this is going to be feed that fire throughout the entire body. So my hands are planted, my back toes are tucked, and go ahead and lift those hips up and come into your down dog. So this can be a shorter one or a wider one, whatever you want to do. And I highly recommend, we're going to be here for a few breaths, several breaths actually. So go ahead and pedal those legs out. Give yourself a nice bend in the knee and then the other, really stretching through all of your toes and your fingers all the way up through your legs to your hips, all the way up from your arms, your hands, all the way through your shoulders. And when you feel like you've had enough movement, go ahead and find stillness. So that could be bent knees, or it could be straight legs, whatever you need today for this pose. And we're going to stay here for a minute, so you're going to feel that heat building in the body. That's the yang energy. We need both in our life. We need both rest and movement. There's a balance between the two. Too much of one can lead to problems, and too much of the other can lead to problems also. So we're going to stay here for another round or two of breath in through the nose. You're welcome to sigh it out audibly if you want. Let's do 2 more rounds of breath. And then from here, we're going to come into pigeon pose. So I'm going to bring my right leg forward first into pigeon. So my right knee is pointed toward the right edge of my mat. Untuck those back toes, and my right leg is shooting out behind me. And we're going to come into this more introspective, more calming pose. Now, if this is not working for you, you can come onto your back and come into figure 4. So that's just bringing the right foot on top of the left knee and pulling your legs in. Your left leg in. So you'll really feel that in the hip also. So either one, whatever works best for you. I'm going to stick with my pigeon because I absolutely love this pose. It's one of my absolute all-time favorites. You can stay more upright if you really need to. You could stay up on your forearms, or you can come all the way down your forehead. But this is your more calming, introspective yen posture to help us come back to a little calming. And again, let's come back to that why. What is your why for what you've picked? You may have multiple things you've picked. What is your why for each one of them? I'm going to stay here for a few breaths. I'm going to stay up a little upright so I can talk and not be right in the mic. You stay in whatever variation works for you. Sometimes what we pick at the beginning of a year or the beginning of a week or the beginning of a month, whatever it might be, at the time it seems like that's what we want. And then we need to reevaluate as we go. So if we find that we're not accomplishing those goals, is it because it's not really something that's important to us? That's why coming back to your why really helps you decide if that's really something that you want to focus on. Another breath here. And then to switch sides, if you're on your back, you're just going to go ahead and switch sides. So then you're going to put your left foot on your right knee and then hug your right leg into your chest. If you're in pigeon with me on the ground here, we're just going to do a very brief down dog, or even just shoot that right leg back and give a little calf stretch. Actually, I'd recommend that one over down dog since we already did down dog, just to give it a little stretch there before coming to the other side. So now we're going to bring that left foot forward into pigeon, or stay on your back and come on down into your pigeon here. So again, we're into our calming and introspective. Sorry, I lost the word. Introspective pose here. So always come back to your why, and sometimes that's all the motivation that you need. So stay breathing there. You can come as far down as you like or stay more upright. Feel the release in your hips. Another round of breath. And then we're going to move into another yang pose. And for some of us, it's not our favorite, but it's a great one to strengthen. So go ahead and come out of that pose. If you're on your back, go ahead and come on up to all fours. And if you want to stretch your leg back, that left leg, to release that, go for it. So now we're going to come into plank pose. Now your plank may look like plank with your knees off the ground, or it may look like with your knees on the ground. It does not matter. You decide. But the yang portion of this is going to be, we're going to hold it. So get yourself set up. We're not quite into it yet. Just get yourself ready. And you can come out at any time. You don't have to stay as long as I am. So go ahead and get yourself ready. And we're going to hold this for, starting now, 30 seconds. So again, your plank can be your knees down or your knees up. Look out in front of you. Feel strong and stable in the core. We're halfway through, so if you want to stay with me a little bit longer, otherwise bring your knees down, you can come down. 10 more seconds. Hold it. Really feel that energy, that heat building, and release the knees down, release your belly down to the ground and come all the way down. And we're going to come into Sphinx, which will be our next, more calming after that pose. So sometimes it's nice to do a little combo of poses, some that are calming and some that are a little bit more strengthening or fiery, to give us what we need, a little balance of both. Sometimes we need that motivation and the rest in between. So I'm just looking out in front of me here, my Sphinx pose. Elbows are underneath of the shoulders. Chest is open. I'm not slouching here. This is still an active pose, but obviously not as active as that plank was. Also opening the front body a little bit too, giving that a little stretch after the strengthening. And then now last, we're going to switch it up onto our backs here. And we're just going to come into our last somewhat heating pose, and that's bridge pose. So bridge pose, go ahead and place the soles of your feet on the ground. Your hands are next to your sides here. And you're going to lift up into a bridge, and we're going to stay here for a few breaths. So we're not going to let that go. We're going to stay here, which is going to build some heat also in the body here. Now you can make this a bit more of a calming pose by using a block underneath you. So sometimes we do that to make it more of a calming, more restful pose. But this time we're going to hold ourselves up. And you don't have to be really high up. You can be lower, or you can be really, that depends. You decide on your level. But try to keep your knees pointed straight forward and not splaying out or in. You can close your eyes here. Stay with me for 3 more breaths, okay? Just stay there for 3 more breaths. And we're going to finish out with a nice, calming yen type pose. One more inhale. A nice big exhale. You can sigh it out and release all of that down. You should really feel that in your legs. All right, go ahead and hug your knees into your chest. We're just going to come into a nice supine twist. So lying on our back, we're just going to bring both of our knees over to the right, left arm out to the left, and look in any direction. I like to look the opposite direction as my knees to really get a nice twisting stretch here. Looks like Josie's going to join us for a little cameo there in the background. So this is our last introspective calming pose. And again, come back to your why. Bring your knees into your chest, and you've guessed it, we'll go to the other side. So drop both knees over to the left, Right arm out to the right, look out any direction. I prefer to look out the opposite direction, but you are welcome to look at any direction. You can close your eyes here if you like. Just breathing in and out. Life is all about balance. We need the calm and we need the movement and the fire. Both are important in our lives. Hug your knees into your chest. Find your way up to a seat, however that might be. I'm going to come over to my side here, bring myself up with my arms, dust the sand off, and thank you so much for joining me. I hope this class was helpful, gave you a little motivation boost. And until next time, thank you again for joining me.